A few weeks ago I did a video on my DVD collection, part 1. Well, no surprise, it's part 2 of the DVD collection. Yes, welcome back, and hope you are well. So I wanted to finish this off, but it's not going to be finished off today because there's still plenty to go. Some of the bigger stuff, the really big box sets and things like that, are going to fall into the third part. So there will be a 3-parter on this one. I can keep it to 3 anyway. And it's mostly going to be box sets as well today, but the smaller variety. And this is probably going to be more TV based and maybe a bit sort of specialist. That might turn some people off. I don't know, you might enjoy, if you enjoyed the first one, which is down below, you probably enjoy this one. If you know me, let's be a little bit closer, and my sort of interests, then this might sort of appeal to you. Then again, it might not, I don't know. We'll have to see, won't we? Always best way. Hidden hope, yeah. There's some gaming stuff coming, by the way. I haven't forgot about the gaming stuff. It's just that I've got a bit of a remodel around here. I may have mentioned it previously, but I've been thinking about it and I've got an idea now. So I've got some time off, an extra day off next weekend, and have a go at that. So I'll put some videos out about that. So yeah, still gaming content to come. Don't worry, I've not completely dropped the gaming stuff. Well, it's all behind me, isn't it, you know. Right, so let's talk DVDs. And these are going to be in no particular order, as the last lot was. I'm going to run out of space rapidly because I've just realised I've got no space here to put all this on. And there's no space back in the crate. Let's take one out, put it back. You can't do that. That's too much in the crate. So I'll have to stack and go. Yes. Right, quick swig as we go along. So yes, as the first video, very much an eclectic mix of all sorts of different things. It's going to be all sorts of different eras, all sorts of different genres. This, I'm going to say, is probably going to focus a lot on film, but a lot on television as well. So yeah, let's start as we mean to go on, shall we? And you'll get an idea roughly probably where we may end up with some of this. And again, I can probably tell you that a lot of this stuff may not have even been watched, we'll have to say. So let's start off then with going right back to the 40s, 1940s, not 1840s. I know some people think I'm that old. Back to the 1940s with the complete Road 2 box set. And this was a series of films starring Bing Crosby, Bob Hope and Dorothy Lamour, which ran from, I think, 1940, and there was one into the early 50s, and there was one film in the 60s as like a revival. It's got a slipcase thing with it. It's 7 films altogether, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, yeah, 7 altogether. I don't know why I picked this up, because I've never really sort of been a fan of the Road 2 films. I mean, Bob Hope, I'm a great admirer of Bob Hope and his style of comedy. But I don't know. I may have seen one on the telly when I was a kid. But they're all done very nicely. The discs look like they've been thought about and done in the style of that era. There's some photographs there as well. It's a nice little box set, actually. You don't see it very often. 7 films altogether, starting with, they're all called the Road 2. So I'm just going to shout out where they went to. Singapore, Zanzibar, Morocco, Utopia, Rio, Bali, and then Hong Kong, which is the one that was made in the 60s, a sort of revival. There's the back of it as well. Yeah, if you like that sort of era, that's good. I mean, they are quite funny films. From what I understand, they're very, very funny, but I've yet to sit down and really appreciate them properly. I can't remember which one I've seen. Probably Zanzibar rings a bell, the second one. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, the Road 2 films. Now, staying in that era, and this is going to be completely different. And again, I dare say probably a lot of people have never even heard of this comedian. I got this at Car Boot years ago. And we have the legendary Pete Waterman to thank for this. I shall tell you more as I show you a rather battered copy of the Arthur Askey collection. Now, who is Arthur Askey? Arthur Askey was a Liverpudlian comedian, very, very popular on the radio in the early days of radio in the 1930s, and had a very popular radio show called Bandwagon. And he made loads of films. And he was one of the very first people to go on television when television sort of launched properly in the 50s. And he was very well associated with pantomime toward the end of his career as well. And he died in 1980, late 80s I think it was. Early 80s. And so there's 6 films in here. Bees in Paradise, I Thank You, which is one of his catchphrases. They all had catchphrases back then. Backroom Boy, Miss London Limited, which I must have seen about 4 or 5 times. I think it's the only actual Arthur Askey film I've watched all the way through. You've also got King Arthur Was a Gentleman and Bandwagon, which is loosely based on the radio show. He always had a sidekick with him, Richard Murdoch. Not Rupert Murdoch, Richard Murdoch. And many, many years ago, going back, I think this box set was probably early 2000s. Just trying to see the bottom here. Can't quite remember. But Pete Waterman sort of was behind, I believe, restoring these and getting these out again. If you've got access to talking pictures occasionally, when the films comes up again, probably doesn't survive particularly well. It's a different style of comedy back then if you weren't into it. But no, I thought it was just one of these curiosity things that I just pick up when I used to walk around car boots. And I saw it for about £3 and I thought, oh, I'll buy that. And I've not watched them. No, not watched any of them, but yeah, so a bit of history there for you. Right, now this is a big one. This is a chunky box set. You'll probably get which genre I like best of all. So we're going to carry on. So we're going to move from sort of crazy screwball comedies to British humour to Woody Allen. Woody Allen, this is the Woody Allen collection, and there are a lot of films on here. A lot of films. This weighs a considerable amount. Love the design on the front because you might be able to see closely there. It's sort of made up of titles of his films, or yeah, there are titles of his films and things like that, which is a very good picture. I like that. It's really, really good. That's the back of it, which you're not going to be able to see anything because it just lists all the films that's on there. Those are the films, you can see. So Another Woman, Bananas, Stardust Memories, Zelig, Shadows and Fog, Sleeper, Radio Day, September, Midsummer Night's Sex Comedy, The Purple Rose of Cairo, Manhattan, Melinda and Melinda, Broadway Danny Rose, Crimes and Misdemeanors, Interiors, Love and Death, Alice, Annie Hall, and then that last one down there, which is so small as anything, was Everything You Wanted to Know About Sex But Were Afraid to Ask Anne, Hannah and Her Sisters. Now, I bought a book years ago, which he'd written, which was, I don't know, I just found incredibly sort of out there and incredibly hilarious. And then when I was sort of in full, I like to refer to it as film wanker mode back in my very late teens and early 20s, I would sort of go through some of these, and undoubtedly one of my favourite films of all time. And I urge anybody who likes slapstick comedy to go and watch Sleeper, which is, if I can just try and show you that. It would be nice if I could show what I'm talking about, wouldn't it? There we go. Sleeper, which is his character who gets chronologically frozen in the 70s and is awoken many, many, many years later to find the world's completely changed. It's got Diane Keaton in it as well, was very much associated with Woody Allen in the 70s. It's honestly, there's a gag in that film with a giant banana skin. It just speaks for itself. It's one of my absolute favourites, and then my other absolute favourite as well of this set, which is Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Sex But Were Afraid to Ask, which was basically based on a book, and he sort of put his own interpretation on it, like 7 or 8 different short films based on the chapters in the book, and they've all got their own story behind it. The most memorable one probably from that is the sequence with Gene Wilder and the sheep. Did I say more? Again, I've not really watched many of these at all, because I tend to find that people sort of divide into kind of early Woody Allen. He's very sort of comedy, slapstick based, rapid fire gags, and then as he moved into the 70s, he gets a bit more intellectual. So films like Annie Hall, Manhattan, etc., are a bit more thinking about it. And I never really watched any of his stuff in the 80s. Purple Rose of Cairo, Broadway Danny Rose is one I really, really want to sit down and watch. Stardust Memories as well. But yeah, I think it's probably one of these things. It's quite an eclectic taste, and obviously he's not really done a lot of great films. I went to see a Woody Allen film in the cinema back in the 90s. What's it called now? It was like a musical. Everyone Says I Love You, I think it was, which I went to see. It was in a very, very art house cinema in Sheffield. So that's my full sort of like Barry Norman mode back then, really was. I'd only watch films that were sort of shown in artisan cinemas and had budgets of £4.50. And were rave reviewed by all the broadsheets, but all the tabloids never reviewed them. That was it. That's how I sort of enjoyed myself back then. I really must get more into those sort of things. I really must get back into that. I do miss that. Right, let's move on to television. Very briefly, we'll dip into television with Alan Partridge. Got 3 Alan Partridge DVDs here. This is the first one, Knowing Me, Knowing You, with Alan Partridge. Also features the Christmas episode, which tends to pop up on the BBC every year. Did this year. And this is Steve Coogan as Alan Partridge. At this point in his career, he's a television talk show host. I've also got this on video. If you've seen my video collection, I've also got this on double VHS as well. But yeah, it's just basically him interviewing people and with hilarious consequences. No, it's not quite. Some people don't. I never found it. I wasn't quite sure at first whether it was a spoof or not. That's how stupid I am. Was this actually a spoof when it came out? And it was. But yes, I mean, yeah, really, really good. This one. It started his life as a radio program and transferred to television. Sometimes the translations don't quite come off, and I think if you listen to the radio, I've not listened to the audio ones for some time, but I think they survive a little bit better than the TV ones. And then we move on to arguably one of the greatest collection of 6 30-minute episodes of a comedy series ever. The very first series of I'm Alan Partridge. This is from start to finish. If you like sort of cringe comedy, this, if you've never seen it, this is absolutely for you. Even a friend of mine who hated Alan Partridge really, really got into this. Even there's like an outtakes reel on here. Even that's funny. And you think, how can they leave stuff out of this? I honestly believe this is like perfect 6 episodes of comedy. It just does not get any better than that. It really, really doesn't. Honestly, it is one of the absolute classics. And then there was a bit of a gap, and then we had the second series, and I was never quite as fond as this one as I was the first series. I don't know why. Win £250 worth of BBC DVDs. How interesting. But I was never quite a fan of the second series as I was about the first. I've probably watched the first series. I must watch it maybe at least once every 18 months. This one, I might dip in once every 3 or 4 years. I think in this one he's more unbearable. This one, you can see he's sunk into sort of this like sad, pathetic state. This one, where in his own terms he's bounced back, he's actually more unbearable than he is in that series. You actually feel a little bit sorry for him in this one. Only a little bit. This one, you don't feel sorry for him at all. You just think he's a complete git. I don't know whether that's the point of it, but yeah, the second series just didn't capture the magic of the first. Because I think there was a gap of too many years. You got to sort of jump in and strike while the iron is hot. Right, back to the 70s we go. And another one of my obscure, why did I buy this situation? Why did I buy this at the time? I don't know. Got this from Amazon? Or was it eBay? eBay, probably. And the reason I got this, because many years ago there was a channel on satellite called Granada Plus. Some of you may mention it, may remember it. Which is, you had UK Gold, which took the best of BBC and Thames Television and turned it into like a nostalgia channel. And then Granada Plus basically took the best of the rest from ITV, all the regions, and started their own channel. Very good channel it was too. Nothing wrong with it. And occasionally you just find stuff on there, and I think it was every Sunday morning this was on, and I'd sort of find myself watching, because it's an easy watch for an hour or so. And I just sort of became obsessed. And the theme tune, the theme tune is one of the best of all time. If you've never heard the theme tune to this programme, do go and seek it out. And it had a redo over a few years back, but I just didn't feel the same. Anyway, I'm talking about Van der Valk, which is a TV series, based on a series of books, Dutch books, by a detective working in Amsterdam. So this is the entire first series. And what you've got is 3 episodes per disc, which is why there's so many. Why there's so many discs for a series. And that's it. And if you've got Talking Pictures TV, I believe they repeated this. In fact, I did actually record the entire series when I had Virgin, and my Virgin Media box was full of episodes of Van der Valk and the Dukes of Hazzard. So Dukes of Hazzard got a repeat run on Forces TV when that was around. That's another good channel as well. But yeah, but I have actually worked my way through about half of that. I will do it. It's 70s gritty police drama, if you like that. It's in English. It's all done with English actors. It was filmed in Amsterdam and everything. Barry Foster as Van der Valk. Again, they brought this. I think it ran for about 4 series in the 70s, and there was a revival again in the late 80s, early 90s of a series of like 2-hour episodes. About 4 or 5 of those, I think. But yeah, you get an idea. It's very sort of 70s, but actually it was quite gritty. Tackled some interesting subjects. I'll just show you those. But yeah, the theme tune is also worth checking out. A song called Eye Level by I don't remember the name of the bloody band now. It wasn't a band, it was an orchestra. The Simon Something Orchestra, which I just cannot remember off the top of my head. And it was actually a #1 single back in the 70s. Yeah, TV theme tune song went to #1. The Simon Park Orchestra, that was it. The Simon Park Orchestra. Great song, really is. Just sums it all up. I've mentioned this previously, so if I'm wiping dust off the top, I just got these off the shelf because they've been sitting there for ages. I mentioned this previously, I bought this, when I watched this when it first came on the television, because I was a big fan of the guys in it, and I'd never seen any of this particular style of comedy. And this was quite an expensive box set at one point, and then it got repackaged and re-released, and there's absolutely no value in it whatsoever. But at one point, I remember looking at copies on Amazon for about 150, 160 quid. This is the entire run of Fry and Laurie's Jeeves and Wooster, which was, again, early to mid-90s, based on the P.J. Wodehouse books. And I'd never heard of Wodehouse, but they were very popular comedians at the time on the BBC, and they were absolutely ideal for this role. I mean, I can't imagine 2 comedians better suited for playing these roles, because the way Hugh Laurie is, he is the sort of the typical Bertie Wooster upper class twit, and you can imagine Stephen Fry being a little bit pompous. A little bit like that. And again, this ran for 4 series altogether. The 4th series, I think, was it the 3rd series was set in America? Yeah, 3rd series, they moved the location to America, and it didn't quite have the charm and the appeal. Well, again, that's mainly down to the original books, I'm guessing. But if you again, set in the sort of the high society of England, London, particularly in the 1920s and 30s, it is actual, sort of upper class twits and flapper girls. That's very much your sort of thing. And yeah, it's good. I watched a couple of Woodhouse things. Blandings, I think, was another one at Healy, which BBC did a series of about 10 years ago, which they put out a Sunday tea time, and it was generally panned, but it was a nice half an hour of relatively amusing television with Timothy Spall and Jennifer Saunders. It was quite good. But yeah, that got repackaged, and the value of that just sort of disappeared, which is could have sold that at the time. That and made a bit of money. Right, I mentioned this one previously in the last video, Will Hay, and I've got a couple of others here as well. The reason they've been split in my collection is because I believe I let my dad win Bag the Sailor, and when I got it back off him, I didn't stick him with these 2. Well, I found these, I can't remember where I got them from, but Boys Will Be Boys, which is Will Hay as a schoolmaster, which is one of his most famous roles. Actually, no, tell a lie, that's the other one, isn't it? Good Morning Boys, sorry. Boys Will Be Boys, he's a schoolmaster in a prison with hilarious consequences. And this one's, I've seen this one quite a few times, Will Hay, Convict 99, where he's actually a governor of a prison, and features Maud Marriott, one of my favourite actors of that period as well. Like I said, again, it's that sort of thing. If you're interested in British film comedians of the time, in the 30s and 1930s and 40s, that's the sort of thing you do. Again, Will Hay films pop up all the time on Talking Pictures TV. I'm not doing a trailer for Talking Pictures TV, it's just that a lot of the stuff ends up on there from here nowadays, as they do on these obscure satellite and cable channels. Same with comedy back to the 1940s, but we're going to America this time, and we have Laurel and Hardy. Yes, but you're wondering how long it was before they made an appearance on this. Now, these are 2 individual sets of the films that they made for Fox and MG. No, not Fox and MGM. It was Fox It was Fox. They're all Fox films, yeah. 2 films that are made for MGM are not part of this collection. This is part of 8 films they made in the 1940s after they left the Hal Roach studio. Laurel and Hardy, at the time, it was 1940, yes. Their star was beginning to wane a little bit. If you were like me, my age, were brought up on Laurel and Hardy films on the television in the 1970s and 80s and into the 90s. You're not talking about. They will always show the Hal Roach stuff from before 1940 and before, and it was very rarely any of these ones turned up on television. It was only through reading about Laurel and Hardy I found out that these films generally are not good. Although a bad Laurel and Hardy's tends to be better than a good Abbott and Costello, which I learned quite a few years ago. So when they left Hal Roach in 1940, they wanted, their star was on the wane a bit there. I think they probably hit their peak maybe 4 years previously, way out west. Although they made, carried on making films, they weren't quite as good as they were the last 3 they put out for Hal Roach. Blockheads, which probably the best one of the 3. A Chump at Oxford, which isn't great, and Saps at Sea, which has its admirers. It's not bad, but they wanted to go out on their own and make their own films, and Hal Roach always used to keep them a contract that one contract would expire 6 months before the other one. So it was very difficult for them to sort of go elsewhere and do things, but they both decided at the same time that they would leave and go and strike out on their own. And they changed. They eventually got approached by Fox. They ended up there making 6 films for them and 2 films on loan at MGM, and the experience for them was not good. Whereas at Hal Roach Studios, they were allowed to be Laurel and Hardy, and they were involved in the process of Stan and Laurel, particularly involved in the script writing, the production, getting the gags right. And they were very much involved. When they went to Fox, they were just simply treated as actors. We do all the writing, we do all this, you just turn up and do your lines, and that's it. And basically these 6 films here and the other 2 are rehashes of earlier routines, earlier situations. You're just sort of lazy, and you can see that their enthusiasm as it goes through is diminishing, and as they're getting older as well, because by this point here they're probably where are we? I'm guessing probably into their 40s, and they're beginning to look a little bit old men by this point. So slapstick and stuff probably not their forte. There are some good films, don't get me wrong. We've got 6 films in here altogether, which are Jitterbugs, Great Guns, The Big Noise, Bullfighters, The Dancing Masters, and A Haunting We Will Go. If you are interested in picking any of those films out to have a look at, I would certainly recommend Jitterbugs, and I would certainly recommend The Bullfighters. The rest, I wouldn't. A Haunting We Will Go and The Dancing Master are probably the weakest of the 2. Really are quite poor films. The Dancing Masters does have an early appearance by Robert Mitchum, and also Margaret Dumont, who spent a working time working with the Marx Brothers in the 30s, also as a cameo in that, but again very, very disappointing. Yeah, they're not great films. Laurel and Hardy, Fish and Hardos tend to not be so much interest. Even now, 20, 30 years later, after rediscovering these films, people still think there's no great films. The Bullfighters probably is consistent. Jitterbugs got a nice little soundtrack on that one, but yeah, they're not good. And they never get shown on television a lot. In fact, The Dancing Masters, I remember never having seen that film. It got a premiere. It hadn't been shown on television for about 60 years, and it turned up on Sky Movies Greats, I think, or Sky Movies Gold, and it was actually down as a television premiere. It hadn't been shown in this country on TV before probably late 90s, early 2000s, something like that. So yeah, I stumbled across The Big Noise, which used to be regarded as one of the worst 50 films ever made. It's not quite as bad as that, but it's not good. And I stumbled across that on Channel 4 on a school holiday morning, just out of the blue. So yeah, if you like Laurel and Hardy, probably best pick 2 of those films out and leave the rest. If you've got a curiosity, you've never seen them before, you've only seen the Hal Roach stuff, have a look at that. Right, we're staying in that era. I'm going to try and come out of black and white here very soon. Sorry, I should have done this in black and white, shouldn't I? Black and white, yeah. We have the Harold Lloyd collection. Now this is a definitive collection, a 9-disc box set. Again, another staple of my childhood. sort of rotating with Laurel and Hardy, maybe on a Friday night on BBC Two in the 70s and 80s, and continually throughout the school holidays, The Crazy World of Harold Lloyd. Hooray for Harold Lloyd. Seek out the theme tune on YouTube. You can even find episodes of the TV series as well from it. This is the complete collection. And he was a stuntman. Him hanging off a clock here is exactly the sort of crazy things he used to do. Back then, in the 1920s, they did their own stunts. And he would do completely crazy things when he's hanging off the side of a building. He is that far up. There might be a platform under there, but he is that high up. He's doing all those stunts. He actually lost part of his hand when a device exploded by accident. He had to wear a glove for most of the rest of his career. But his slapstick style, his brand of comedy, it was just formative in my comedy years. And this contains everything. This contains all the feature films that he did, including the very last one, which was The Sin of Harold Diddlebrook, I think it was called, which was a sequel to one of his only. He actually made a sequel to one of his own films, silent films, 20 years previously, called The Freshman. And it is just definitive of that era. You know, right up there with the likes of Keaton and Chaplin and the silent film stars. He then moved into talkies in the 30s. I've never actually seen a Harold Lloyd talkie. I've only seen the silenced ones. He did some films in the 30s, which were talkie ones, which weren't very successful. And again, that's what people found. They went from like being a silent film star to being, when sound came in. They didn't quite adapt to it. People didn't, some of the voices didn't fit the pictures that the person they'd been watching for all the years. It didn't sound right. Simply by having the wrong voice back then, killed your career. You could be a big silent film star. As soon as you opened your mouth, you started squeaking like a mouse. That was it, mate. That was your career done. That was it. John Garfield, I think, was a very, very famous actor who was a tremendous silent film actor. And when talkies came in, he had the wrong voice. His voice just did not sound right. And people just dropped him like a stone. He ended up, I think, becoming an alcoholic because of it. Lost everything. Terrible. Can you imagine that nowadays? Stacey Solomon would be on the streets, wouldn't she? Sorry, I watched it a couple of weeks ago on An Old Would I Lie to You. She's a very funny girl. She comes across as being a bit thick or stereotypically thick, but she's very, very clever. She's very, very clever. But yeah, this is just a great collection. They've also got some commentaries on these as well by the well-known film historian Leonard Maltin. And he had some real interesting aspects to it. The Freshman, I think that's The Freshman there, is it? Yeah. No, that's The Freshman. That's the American football comedy, which is probably his most famous film. But yeah, I mean, if you like that sort of thing, great. I mean, like I said, this was on television all the time when I was a kid. I'm sure most people my age grew up watching Harold Lloyd. And interesting thing, folks, if you didn't realise that at the time, but all those episodes, those 25-minute episodes of The Crazy World of Harold Lloyd with a great theme tune and whatever, they were all compilations from his films. So they weren't like little short films all put in together or whatever. They would basically just took his films, added a completely irrelevant commentary over the top of it, and some new music and sound effects, and that was it. So you probably actually find he maybe only did sort of like a handful of films, but enough for like great wad loads of 25-minute episodes of that. Just unbelievable. We'll stick with black and white. Paul, the Ink Northern's watching. He'll like this one. Hollywood musicals of the 30s, 40s, 50s and 60s. When will the pain stop, I hear you cry? We're nearly there. We'll move on to the colour stuff very shortly. Again, this is a DVD. I got this. I think I may have got this out of my insurance payout when we were broken into all those years ago. This is a compilation of just musicals. And from the 1940s, the 50s and the 60s. I'll probably spend more time watching the 40s because that is definitely more my thing. Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers. This has got some very dubious material on it. If you have an interest in blackface, there's a couple of really sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah. Sequences which probably, if they were shown us on television, they wouldn't get shown. That's the 40s. I'll show you the 50s. Again, I think that's Fred Astaire on the front there. Featuring people like Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire, Ann Miller, Debbie Reynolds, Donald O'Connor, Howard Keel. We got Ginger Rogers, Fred Astaire, Judy Garland, Betty Grable on that one, which you can't see because I've pointed it out for you. And if I drop down here and hide behind that, we've got the 60s, which I haven't actually watched. Purely because I'm not particularly... I don't know, musicals of the 60s, not really my thing. What it says on the back here. So we've got people like Audrey Hepburn, Julie Andrews, Dick Van Dyke. God, I hope he's not doing Mary Poppins. Dean Martin. I think that's because I associate with musicals with sort of the 30s to 50s. And when we got in the 60s, things started to shift a little bit. But it's a great little set, and I mean, I think you can find that for pence probably. And if you like your old stuff, that's entertainment films are the pinnacle. But that's a nice little compilation. Where are we? You've got. It's about 6 hours, about 2 hours each, about 6 hours of stuff in there. And some stuff that you might never see ever again because it's just not, what's the word? Right? Politically correct. Right, is this the last one now? Right, this is the last black and white one. Hooray, I hear you cry. This one that Claire's mum got me actually, Mrs. Bear's mum. Picked up for me one Christmas. And how can we go through black and white comedy without talking about the Marx Brothers? Animal Crackers, Monkey Business, Duck Soup and Horse Feathers. Four of their earliest films before they moved to MGM. And yeah, I mean, absolute classics. So far ahead of their time were the Marx Brothers. I have to do this quite strangely because I don't know why is it done it like this? Oh my goodness me. Right, let me just try and hold this up for you. Wow, look at that complete layout. It's like that Super Game Boy thing, isn't it? But yeah, really nice, presentable little set, that one. I'm trying not to break it now. But yeah, it's just one of my favourite comedy teams. They were so far ahead of their time that their stage shows probably were better than what actually ended up translating on film. Of these 3 or 4 here, Duck Soup is probably the one that most people would recognise. It's a political satire set in 1933, political satire. Probably overtures of what's to come, not shortly afterwards. But they've all got their own merits. And again, if you like zany comedy and Groucho Marx, you don't know who he is there, just the one-liners, absolutely fantastic. Really are. Yeah, just so far ahead of their time. Yeah, so I'm just getting all nostalgic there, but yeah, they were just great, and I mean, it's a great little set. So I've got some of these on VHS. In fact, probably the one thing from that time, because the reason I got the Marx Brothers, my uncle bought me a video, which I think I showed on my video collection a couple of years back. Room Service, which was actually a film they did for RKO on loan from MGM, and that sort of got me into the Marx Brothers. He said, "Oh, you got to watch this," and he bought me that, and I was like, "Wow!" And then, yeah, so I've seen most of them now. I think it's probably a couple. I still haven't seen A Night in Casablanca all the way through, and I've probably only seen At the Circus a couple of times. But yeah, they are the early stuff probably better than the later stuff, but again, that's always the case sometimes. Right, we've moved on from that. We're now going to start talking black and white films. It's safe to come back into the room. And the rest of this stuff here, apart from this one, it's all going to be TV related. I'll show you this. There's actually some gaming in here. Look, it's a gaming DVD called Retro Gaming Volume 1, which says DVD at the top, just in case you are clear. I have absolutely no idea where this came from. It's in association with Scrooge, the gamers auction site and Telegames. This was meant to be, I believe, a 2-part DVD. And all it is just actually about 3 hours. I think, is it 3 hours? It goes on for a long time. 3 hours of like short game footage. So what you watch on YouTube now, this is exactly what it is. And yeah, there we go. So a review of over 400 games. It says review, it's basically just short gameplay footage. Master System, Mega Drive, Atari 267800, Lynx NES, Game Boy, ColecoVision, Intellivision, PC Engine, and the unreleased Conix system. Yes, the Conix multi-chair. And it was meant to be a volume 2, which should have had PlayStation 1, 2, Dreamcast, GameCube, Xbox, and PSP, PS3, Xbox 360, but I don't ever remember seeing it. This I got from a car boot for £1 many, many years ago. And some of the footage, it's not been particularly well put together, I will say that. Some of the footage is, particularly the Atari stuff, is, yeah, the quality's not great. I've only watched it the once, but yeah, it's just basically just loads of games and about 10 seconds footage from each one. So it's not really a viewing experience. Right, this one sort of sits in between what I'm going to show you now, what I'll show you on here and elsewhere. So we've got the stage production of It's Not the Messiah, which is celebrating 40 years of Monty Python. And it says here, in 1979, Monty Python's Life of Brian turned the biblical epic on its head. Now the makers of Spamalot turn the classical music on its ear. Prepare for Not the Messiah, He's a Very Naughty Boy, the comedic masterpiece that combines all the unforgettable humour of the Python's most celebrated film, Life of Brian, with the overblown grandeur of a symphony orchestra. And featuring a range of rare on-stage reunion of Eric Idle, Michael Palin, Terry Jones and Terry Gilliam. So there was Spamalot, which was the musical which was based on Holy Grail, and there's this. Again, got this from a car boot many years ago. I lent it to my dad, and yeah, many years later I retrieved it from him as well. So there we go. You may not know much about that one. I've never actually seen it. It does actually say not for rental or resale. Yeah, so I'm not sure where it came from. Car boot somewhere, and yeah. Didn't even know I found it. I thought I hadn't got it, but yeah, it's one of those things. Right, let's move on to TV series, shall we? Let's change the mood slightly, because I think this is rather important, particularly what we've just experienced in the last week or so. Anyway, what we have here is a box set of The World at War. Now, this is the absolute, even now, 50 years later, the absolute pinnacle of television documentary making. And this is from a 26 episode run. You know, 26 episodes nowadays. You probably get 3 or 6 episodes. I think it was 26 anyway. There's enough discs in here to fill a disc box. But the definitive history of World War II. And I first came across this series, not at the time, because it was on before I was born, believe it or not. Ironically, one Christmas on the BBC, on BBC Two. Probably, it's going to be sometime early 2000s, 2002, 2005. BBC Two decided to rerun the entire series for the first time in 30 years, near enough. Although it was an ITV series originally. Granada, I think it was. Might have been. And they reran the entire series over Christmas with 2 episodes a day. Not exactly essential Christmas viewing, but having done history at GCSE and A level, I've got and particularly covering this period, I always had an invested interest in it. So I thought, yes, I'm going to sit down and watch that. And even now, I mean, the series, this is the DVD, the series has had a Blu-ray re-release and been nicely tidied up and whatever, all the arcade footage. But when you actually watch something like this, you realise that the accounts of people in here now are going to be recorded forever, because these people in here are long gone. Most of them are long gone. And they've taken these stories and these recollections with them. It's 10 discs altogether, and it's just basically that. I think it came out as a magazine re-release as well. It's been re-released many times, but as it says there, the definitive history of World War II, and it is. I mean, it might not be the sort of thing you're interested in, but there's so much in here. I always say to people, I said, if you watch one television series from start to finish, that is significant to where we are today and what the world could have become. And unfortunately, in some cases, which maybe the world is heading towards. This everybody needs to watch this at least once in their life. They really do. And it will explain why so much of the stuff that we see nowadays is worrying. You watch this and you think, how did we get to this point in the first place? Why did this mass anyway, his waste of human life occur, and why are we now seeing resurrections of elements of this? It's just. I don't usually get into sort of things like this, but when you've actually been to these places, when you've actually seen, when you've actually stood up high on Omaha Beach to see the view down where the American soldiers and the Allied soldiers were coming off there, and what was waiting for them, to go to see the horrors of the concentration camps, to see the museums that have been set up, and believe me, when I was younger, we spent a lot of time in places like Holland and Belgium. We crossed over into Germany with school as part of the GCSE. I went to France. I see it everywhere. I've been on Pegasus Beach. I've seen the bullet holes, from the very, very first engagement of combat that evening on D-Day. And this is not something that is not difficult to see. It gets constantly repeated across satellite channels or whatever, and guarantee somewhere within the next 6 months it's going to start showing somewhere. It does require a lot of investment in your time. Like I said, it was 10 sets and 32 hours to get through, but there will not be a documentary like that again. Anyway, I've preached enough. But yeah, and again, that came out of my insurance. I hadn't got it at the time, and it must have been that very first Christmas we were together then in 2002. I remember thinking, yes, I need to get that, and that at one point was like a 50 quid box set. It was quite expensive. Have I got you? Are you now back in the room? Has he stopped preaching? Yes, I have. Sorry. But when you see something like that, something you're very, very passionate about, I need something else. Right, so we are now on to TV. Let's get these out of the way, because these sort of sit outside of the comedy section. We've got Thunderbirds. Yes, Thunderbirds, the original TV series. Super Mario Nation. Yeah. Entertained millions and millions and millions of children, and particularly young boys over the years. All the exciting models and 27 hours of action. All those fun episodes on the back there. Yes, how could puppets entertain people for so long? They did. And this was a staple. I remember again Sunday lunchtimes on the old ATV. University Challenge, Benson, and Thunderbirds. And it got revived again in the 90s. BBC Two started showing it, on Cartoon Network at one point. I remember in the early 2000s. It's a classic series. I've never watched the do-overs. I've never watched the film remake. Why would I? That's the sort of thing that you want there. Not particularly big fan of that. Jerry Anderson as it goes. I mean, I'm not watching any. I wasn't into Stingray or Fireball XL5 or even. What was the one? He was Terrorhawks, wasn't it? I think that one. I wasn't really into that. A lot of people were. I wasn't. But yeah, just a great classic series, and it looks a bit basic nowadays, but back then it was all done. With big explosions, models, futuristic vehicles, bits of peril. Even people getting blown up in buildings. With the puppets, they sort of like put cuts and bruises on them. It's just brilliant. It's captured the imagination. So that one sits outside of the comedy, as does this, which is the first two series of Dallas. Why have I got Dallas? My mum was a big fan. I must be honest with you, I bought this in a charity shop for £2 because I was feeling nostalgic and a bit low, and I thought, Mum used to watch Dallas. When I remember Mum watching Dallas, I thought I'll get that just to remind me of her. I should have bought the rest. I've not bought any more, just bought those two. If you don't know Dallas, it was a story of everyday oil people in Dallas, Texas, funnily enough. And it ran for about 10 years, I think it was, massively successful, the height of those 80s sort of power soap operas that the Americans used to do so very, very well. And we had Coronation Street and Albion Market to show them instead. Completely other end of the scale. Everybody had sort of big hair, glamorous clothes and perfect teeth, which I don't think you can associate with either Coronation Street or Albion Market even now. especially Coronation Street, Albion Market finished a long time ago. But yeah, this was just the definitive glossy American soap opera, and it ran for many, many years. I've dropped in and out of Dallas so many times over the years. When its original run was on, it's going to sound weird. I might have told this story before, I don't know, but it always used to be on a weeknight about 8 o'clock. And one day, I remember one day it was school. In fact, me and my mate Jim, who I've mentioned many, many times, we tended to get a little bit obsessive with a couple of the women in it. And we were at school the one day, just sitting there talking, and we were actually doing, as part of the home economics part, this is before we got to GCSEs, we're probably talking 1990 here, I think, 89, 90. So you do cookery, and then you do sort of like homemaking skills like sewing. So we were actually doing sewing. We were making pencil cases, fabric pencil cases. And there'd be 6 of us sort of sat around the table, six boys sat around the table, and sort of want to say, "Oh, did you see Dallas last night?" "Oh yeah, I did, yeah." And I sort of sit thinking, years later, thinking, that's not the sort of conversation how you make, is it really? But no, weirdest thing about it. Great theme tune, love the theme tune to Dallas, and it got revived a number of years back, and it was actually quite good. It got most of the original cast back as well, which was fantastic, those who were able to do it. But it ran for about 10 years. Had a few problems along the way. Most of the cast went on strike one year. So although they were all on the opening titles, about 3 of them only appeared in the series all the way through. One of the main characters was replaced halfway through due to a contract dispute by another actress. And then was subsequently re-replaced at the end of that series. What else happened? The biggest storyline was Who Shot JR, which was a worldwide thing. Now bear in mind, if you go back to the early 80s, that this actually went around the world. A storyline from a TV series. If you think about it now, think about things like The Traitors and makes headline news on the telly. Who Shot JR was like a huge story back in 1981, and it wasn't just in America and over here where we were importing it. It was a worldwide thing. Even now, when people say Who Shot JR, you immediately think back to it. Well, you may do, I don't know, but yeah, anyway. So, and then the very, very first time I got into it was back in, again, the early 90s, or maybe mid-90s. All of a sudden, one day, it was school holidays, and we were going out somewhere. And I was just sitting there watching the telly, waiting for it to get themselves ready, and then all of a sudden it says now on BBC One, Dallas, 11 o'clock in the morning. Strange. And they were rerunning episodes from the early 80s. I think it was a storyline where Bobby's wife, at the end of has a car accident, and I think that was was that the series where it was all made up. The entire series was meant to be a dream, and he woke up in the shower. No, it might have been after that actually. But I think Victoria Principal was written out of the series. She was playing Bobby Ewing's wife. And she was written out, so they knocked her off in a car accident, and that's where and literally for about 2.5 weeks I was taping every episode. I watched the first, I thought, I want to know what's happened next now. So I started taping all the episodes for about 2 weeks, and then realised that I was never going to watch them. Even then, I was never going to watch them. And then the final one I'm going to show you, which I've actually got 2 more to show you, sorry. You may or may not know this one. This was on Sky. People may or may not have heard this one. It's A Touch of Cloth, which is written by, of all people, Charlie Brooker, who's one of my favourite people in the world. And this is a spoof of TV cop dramas, and it was made in the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s. So I think probably before the likes of Line of Duty came on and took all that stuff and raised the bar. This is sort of like, I'm guessing, knocking at things like Murphy's Law and things like that. It stars John Hannah, Saran Jones as well. I think she's in the first 2 series, and then Karen Gillan is in the 3rd series. Just give some of the names on there: Julian Ryan Tutt, Adrian Bauer, Naveen Chowdhury, Stephen Delane. Todd Carty pops up. Oh, yeah, Todd Carty from Grange Hill and EastEnders. Daisy Beaumont, Anna Chancellor, and Karen Gillan. Karen Gillan is in the 3rd series. Actually, I had a bit of an obsession with Karen Gillan. Still have. And this contains all 3 series. and it's a spoof, and it's the fact that he's DCI Jack Cloth, and so many jokes about the word cloth. Gives you an idea. If you like Charlie Brooker, and probably maybe a little bit of like, you know, you like Police Squad and The Late Naked Gun, that might be for you. But I bought it, and I've never actually watched it 'cause it's still sealed. I'd like to watch. It was good. I remember watching it. It was hilarious. I thought it was the funniest thing on television. I thought, what a great idea. Yeah, anyway. Seek it out. It does turn up occasionally on some of these obscure channels. It does turn up. But yeah, if you're a fan of Charlie Brooker, Screen Wipe, etc., that's one to get. And then this one does sit outside of everything else, and then we'll get on to the sort of comedy stuff we got left over. Neighbours, the defining moments. Why have I got Neighbours, the defining moments? Well, like most people who grew up in the 80s, late 80s and 90s, Neighbours was a staple of your daily life. Whether it's lunchtime at 1:30 or tea time at 5:35, Neighbours took up 25 minutes a day of your life, through badly acted and scripted Australian soap opera, a TV programme that was not even popular in its own country, then got sent over here, and we were always 18 months or 15 months behind or something. Now, why have I got this? Well, it's because it's a part of my growing up. This contains a number of episodes, significant episodes from, I don't know. Here we go. This programme contains 15 episodes and 365 minutes that have defined Neighbours, the births, the deaths and the weddings. So we've got births of Daphne's birth, Christina and Libby, the deaths of Daphne, Todd, Jim, Helen and Madge. It's all, oh, I remember this years ago. And then weddings, we got Des and Daphne, Scott and Charlene, Madge and Harold, Beth and Brad, Annalise and Mark, or did they? And Libby and Drew. I don't know. Again, it's just part of my childhood. I never actually watched it. This. I never. What do I buy this crap for? Why do I buy this crap? This, again, was one of those DVDs which I picked up for absolutely nothing and then shot up in price, and I think has been repackaged about 2 or 3 times. On the inside of the front cover there, it gives you the inlay. It tells you the episodes it's actually put in there. And it actually tells you where they are. So I think it runs from... Let's get this out. Thank you once again to That's DVD. I may mention That's DVD in my previous video, providing me with most of the rubbish you've seen so far. But yeah, I mean, we've got episode 295. Episode 5, it tells the episode numbers. Yeah. I'm not sure what it goes up to. I'm guessing probably late 90s. Anyway, Neighbours are the definitive collection. Defining moments. But yeah, 365 minutes, 6 hours of Neighbours. I don't know. Because you're never going to see that released on DVD, the box, you know, you're going to see like Neighbours Series 1, are you? Neighbours Year 1 on DVD or Blu-ray. It'll be that big. You're going to carry it. It's huge. I've been doing about, was it 7 hours now? Okay. We're trying to miss it. Right, we're on to comedy. Come back into the room, it's safe. No more soap operas. The Best of Dave Allen. Again, somebody I discovered many, many years later in life. Used to do, very famous for doing his shows on a Saturday night on the stool with a glass of whiskey in one hand and an endless parade of cigarettes going through his other hand as well. Irish comedian. Some of his stuff was quite not say controversial, but probably ahead of its time. But a fantastic stand-up comedian and very, very funny. The shows were a mixture of sketches and stand-up. If you've never seen Dave Allen, it's worth checking out. Great theme tune to Dave Allen at Large as well. And again, I got that at Car Boot for peanuts. Well, I haven't seen that before. It might be worth something. No, it's not. It's worth nothing. But yeah, one of my favourite stand-up comedians. A great raconteur, storyteller. That's what you want. Somebody tells stories like I do, but not as bad. We got Office Series 1 and 2 and the Christmas specials. I think, like most people, when I first saw The Office, I thought, what a fantastic... Well, I think when most people saw The Office, I either thought, what a fantastic interpretation of office life. I work somewhere exactly the same, or what a load of rubbish. who is this Ricky Gervais person. Again, complete consistency. There are a couple of duff episodes, and again, it's cringe comedy. It's like Partridge. And it's got the Christmas specials in there as well, where you actually end up feeling a little bit sorry for him, and actually you can see the downfall. You know, he's been very lucky to be where he is and just sort of falls off the edge, and then he's really struggling. And then by the end of the Christmas special, he's actually, you know, he's going to be all right, sort of thing. He's found his level. People actually appreciate him more when he's not there. But yeah, there's some horribly cringy moments in there. I still think it's one of the best things that's been on television in the last 25 years. Whether you think so or not is entirely up to you, but I just not been a particularly huge admirer of anything he's done since Ricky Gervais. I will be honest, I've seen quite a lot of his stuff, and I don't think it's been as good as that. You know, if that's all he ever does, fantastic. I'm not into his stand-up stuff at all. Just don't get it. Let's go back to the 70s, shall we? What again? Yes, okay. The Goodies. Do you remember the Goodies? No, I bet you don't. The Goodies. Trilogy of I say comedians, aren't we? Comedians, Oxford graduates, Bill Oddie, Tim Brooke Taylor, and Graham Godden. Tim Brooke Taylor, incidentally, was one of the first casualties of well-known names, a casualty of COVID back in 2020. What a shame. But they were very, very popular in the 70s. Huge TV viewing. Again, it's one of those shows that you either like or you don't. It was very much slapstick comedy, big budget sets. They used to have all this great expense to go for. But some people felt it was very much like a children's programme, so much so that one Christmas special, which is called The Goodies and the Beanstalk, John Cleese as a cameo, we actually shouts the words "children's kids programme" at them. And when I remember it briefly when I was a kid, and then it got started showing on UK Gold many years later. But what they did, they cut it into 15-minute episodes. So they took one episode and just sliced it in half and put it on sort of like 20 to 5, 20 to 6 in the evening. And they'd have a commercial break in there as well, so you got like basically 14 minutes of programme in a 20-minute slot sliced into two, and it just didn't flow properly. So and they moved to Thames when they left the BBC because their budgets were getting out of control. And again, there is some very dubious material on this. Now again, with these DVDs, particularly the second one, that was quite hard to get hold of at one point. I think that's changed since then. But there's a lot of stuff on here. It's got some Christmas specials. There's one episode called South Africa. The Goodies are recruited by the South African Tourist Office to make a film encouraging people to visit the country. I can't imagine that's going to get shown. But yes, so there's quite a few episodes to show from there. Kit and Kong, probably the one they're most famous for, which actually won the Montreux, the Gold Rose and Montreux Television Festival Award back in 1972/3 possibly. And there's an episode with the joint duel for the Magic Roundabout, which you may have seen as well, which is where a puppet government takes over the UK government. And when it says puppet government, it's actually Sooty and the Magic Roundabout and the Clangers things. But anyway, if you never saw it at the time, it never got revived. That was the thing, it never got revived afterwards. And the BBC did a special, again, probably going back to the 2000s sometime. It's one of these programmes that never got repeated. All the stuff that got repeated constantly and consistently over the years. The Goodies never had a proper repeat one. So depends what you feel about it, but anyway. More 70s and the greatest double act this country's ever produced. I don't care what I say about Ant and Dec. Morecambe and Wise set the benchmark, and by far and away one of my favourite comedy duos ever. This one is devoted to all the Christmas episodes, which always now, and have done for the past 30 years, turn up on BBC Christmas schedules. You may have seen them all hundreds of times. There's only 7 or 8 of them, but they get constantly repeated. That's got the complete run, BBC run. This is not the stuff they made for Thames afterwards. And there's also here we've got this is the first and second series. What survived of it, because obviously the BBC used to wipe stuff in the 70s, and believe it or not, some of the Morecambe and Wise stuff episodes did go, and I did actually pay £10.97 for that when it came out. And then there's also the complete third series, That's all I've got. I would have collected the rest, but I really didn't feel like it at the time. You can actually buy a box set now with all the BBC stuff in it. But like I said, that's the BBC stuff from 68 to 77. There is a DVD, I believe, for the Thames stuff, which came after that. Left the BBC, went back to ITV, Thames Television, which we can have a conversation about this. I'm not going to get into now. Not quite as good. In some cases, not anywhere near as good, but there are some good bits in there. The In-Betweeners, series 1 and 2 and 3. I've also got the 2 films as well. I spoke about this before. I mean, to me, that was just revisiting my childhood in many, many ways. Some people like the In-Betweeners, some people don't. To me, I just saw it. I thought, yes, this is definitely me and my mates at school. Not 100%. I mean, there are so many great moments. I think possibly my most favourite moment in that one is either going to be when Will's mum is trying to explain how she had to remove frog spawn from Will's pants, at which point Greg Davis, who plays the teacher, has to walk out. So just excuse me, and he walks outside. You just see him laughing outside hilariously. And then the other one, I think, was the last episode where they're on a camping trip and they're burning Will's stuff to keep things. He said, "Look, stop throwing stuff on my stuff on the fire, stop burning things." And Neil just picks a chair up and throws it on, and he goes, "Stop burning my stuff." Yeah, many, many great moments. Again, people like it, they don't. It's up to you. It's up to you. Another old-time comedian, don't worry, I'm nearly finished. Tony Hancock, Hancock's Half Hour, which again started life on the radio and then transferred to television. Depending on what your opinions are on early television broadcasting, either it was a complete success or they're not quite as good as listening to the radio shows. That was a very early compilation the BBC put out of 6 episodes. It actually turns out it's 5 episodes from the last series, which was just called Hancock. It's called Hancock's Half Hour before that. And then we've got volume 2, 3 and 4, which is a collection of the TV series episodes. And again, when these got repeated on television in the mid-80s, again, they hadn't been seen for 30 years. And again, you don't see them. BBC4 occasionally show a few episodes. I think they've got 8 on the iPlayer at the moment. Poor production values of the day. Obviously, we're talking 1950s, early days of television. But great scripts by Galton and Simpson and brilliantly acted by Tony Hancock and Sid James. And in some of the early episodes, you'll see people like Kenneth Williams and Happy Jakes, John Lemouzier, Hugh Lloyd, all crop up in that. And then the last one I'm going to show you, bringing you right bang up to date, something for the last 30 years, Men Behaving Badly. So what we've got here is the Men Behaving Badly 6-pack. That's the first 2 series on ITV and the 4 BBC series. And then you've got Last Orders, which was the trilogy which came out, the series finished in 96, that came out in 98. What this set doesn't actually have is the Christmas special, Jingle Balls, which is not included in this. And these are just, there's nothing, no frills about this at all. This is just the 6 series, and the same with that as well. There aren't any extras or anything like that. There we go. Although this one does contain a supercut, a special 90-minute Last Orders movie version. So basically taking, I think there were 3 50-minute episodes, weren't they? I remember them back in the day. Yeah, run time 2 hours, 2 hours and 10 minutes. Movie 90 minutes. Oh, I watched that actually. The movie might be better. Yeah, real issues with the last 3 episodes. Very inconsistent. For me, probably the definitive series, Series 4, which was the second one I did for the BBC. Very, very good. Probably not aged particularly well, even though it's only 30 years old. We're talking about blackface earlier and stuff like that, but yes. So whatever it is, it is what it is. It was what it was back then. Watch the first series if you dare. I think Harry Enfield likes to these days. I think he was quite happy to get out of that. And that's it. There we go, that's it. So that's taken up 3 hours of your time. Thank you very much indeed for devoting half your working week to watching this video. I'm sorry it went on for so long, but like I said, it's impossible to pass this stuff through without actually commenting on it, because it's all relevant. It's not like here's a game, here's a game, here's a game, here's a game, or here's a DVD, here's a there is my thoughts and opinions behind each one. Otherwise, I'll just be showing you stuff, wouldn't I? I'm going to give you some context, and hopefully if you've listened to some of it and gone, oh, I've never heard of that, or thought, oh yeah, I remember that, you might actually try and track some of this stuff down. You may not. I don't know. Not the purpose of it. It's just for me to show you what it is. Like I said, there is another one to come. There's going to be some films in that. There's going to be some TV stuff as well, and some big box sets. Big box sets. We're nearly there. But thank you very much indeed for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do watch the first episode if you haven't seen it. That's more film orientated. If you like films, you'll probably see something there. Yeah, I'll probably sit here and talk to you again sometime very, very soon. But until then, I wish you all the very best. I wish you safe journey home. Thank you for coming out today watching this. It's been much appreciated. Take care. Bye bye.